The United States is home to some of the most remote and inhospitable environments on the planet. The vast majority of people are concentrated along the temperate eastern seaboard where conditions are most clement and resources most abundant. But this was not always the case. In fact, it's just the opposite. America's first inhabitants braved the continent's harshest environments to reach the land we now call home. Today we will meet the Paleo Indians, America's earliest known people. Hi everyone. Welcome to my channel. Before we begin, I want to thank everyone who subscribed over the last few weeks. It means a lot to me that so many people have enjoyed what I am doing here and are choosing to stay tuned for more content. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. It really helps get the word out about Native American history. As I mentioned in my first video, there is still a lot of misinformation out there about Native Americans. Many people don't know much about the history of indigenous peoples before European contact and even less about their daily lives, cultures, and contributions to society. As an enrolled member of a federally recognized tribe and a historian, I feel it's my responsibility to educate others about my heritage and help break down harmful stereotypes. This channel will serve as something of a companion to my work as a historian. We will explore the history of Native Americans from pre-contact times through the present day. Check back every week for new content. You can also find additional content on my blog. Let's get started. The Paleo Indians were the first people to inhabit the Americas. They are the predecessors to all subsequent Native American cultures and the ancestors of modern Native Americans. The Paleo Indians lived during the late Pleistocene and early Holocene epochs. This time frame encompasses roughly 130,000 to 8,000 years ago. The Paleo period is distinguished by the last ice age, which peaked around 20,000 years ago. During this time, much of the northern hemisphere was covered in thick ice sheets and the global climate was considerably colder than today. Where did the Paleo Indians come from? This question has generated considerable debate among scholars and researchers, but the most widely accepted theory is called the Bering Land Bridge theory. According to this theory, the ancestors of the Paleo Indians lived in Northeast Asia during the Pleistocene epoch, around 15,000 to 20,000 years ago. As the climate began to cool and the ice sheets expanded, these people migrated into Siberia and along the edge of the ice sheets into Alaska and the Pacific Northwest. This migration would have been a long and arduous journey, but the Paleo Indians successfully made the trip and became the first inhabitants of the Americas. It's important to note that the Bering Land Bridge itself does not exist anymore. It was a real geographic feature during the last ice age when sea levels were lower and temperatures were much colder. It connected Siberia and Alaska. Today, the area is underwater and the only way to access the Americas from Asia is by boat or airplane. Some researchers believe the Bering Land Bridge may have actually been a series of smaller land bridges connecting the two continents. Even if the land bridge theory is correct, there is still considerable debate about exactly how and when the Paleo Indians arrived in the Americas. There is evidence of human habitation in South America dating back 14,500 years ago. This suggests the Paleo Indians may have traveled along the coast, perhaps using boats. Others argue the journey was more likely overland. There is still some controversy about whether or not the Paleo Indians spoke a proto-language that gave rise to all subsequent Native American languages. Unfortunately, the evidence is inconclusive. It's possible they did speak a common language, but it is equally possible that the ancestral population of the Americas consisted of several distinct groups that spoke different languages. What did the Paleo Indians look like? Generally, Paleo Indian people are believed to have looked similar to later Native American populations. They were short in stature and had dark skin, black hair, and brown eyes. However, there is some evidence that the Paleo Indians were more robustly built than later Native Americans. This is probably because the Paleo Indians lived in harsh environments and needed to be physically strong to survive. So what do we actually know about the Paleo Indians? What types of tools did they use? How did they sustain themselves? And what kinds of societies did they form? To answer these questions, let's take a closer look at their way of life. The Paleo Indians were hunter-gatherers. They lived in small bands of between 25 and 50 people and constantly moved in search of food. Their diet consisted mainly of wild game and plants. The Paleo Indians used spears and other primitive weapons to hunt large animals such as mammoths, mastodons, bison, and horses. They also hunted smaller animals such as deer, rabbits, and squirrels. When large game was scarce, they turned to smaller prey or gathered edible plants, berries, and nuts. How do we know what the Paleo Indians ate? One way is by examining the bones of animals they hunted. Archaeologists found animal bones at many Paleo Indian sites that showed butchering marks. These marks indicate the Paleo Indians used stone tools to cut up and process the meat. Animal bones were also examined to determine whether or not the Paleo Indians hunted certain species for their fur or hide. For example, archaeologists discovered a rabbit bone with an unusual pattern of fractures. The fractures indicated that the rabbit was skinned while it was still alive. This suggests that the Paleo Indians used rabbits for their fur. Another way of knowing what the Paleo Indians ate is by examining their teeth. Dental remains reveal a lot about a person's diet. For example, the wear patterns on their teeth tell us what types of foods they consumed. The Paleo Indians lived in a variety of environments, from the Arctic tundra to the Great Plains and the forests of the East. They adapted to their surroundings by building different types of shelters. In warmer climates, they built huts or wigwams out of wood and thatch. In colder climates, they built igloos or snow houses out of stone and packed snow. So what did the Paleo Indians do for fun? Did they play any games or tell stories? Unfortunately, we don't have much evidence about their recreational activities. However, archaeologists did find several items that suggest they may have played games and told stories. For example, they found pieces of bone that may have been used as dice. They also found a number of flutes carved from animal bones. These flutes were probably used to accompany songs and stories. The Paleo Indians were also responsible for some of the earliest cave paintings in North America. These paintings date back 8,000 to 10,000 years and were found in a number of locations, including Texas, Arizona, and Wyoming. The paintings typically depict animals that the Paleo Indians hunted, such as bison, deer, and horses. But how did the Paleo Indians die out? Why are there no Paleo Indians today? Unfortunately, we don't have a definitive answer to this question, but it's likely due to a combination of factors. One possibility is that the Paleo Indians were wiped out by the Younger Dryas impact event. This was a period of rapid climate change that occurred around 13,000 years ago. It may have been caused by the impact of comets or asteroids. The Younger Dryas lasted for about 1,000 years and brought an end to the last ice age. Another possibility is that the Paleo Indians were killed off by emerging diseases. As the ice sheets receded and temperatures rose, new plants and animals migrated to North America. Some of these plants and animals carried diseases that devastated the Paleo Indian populations. A third possibility is that the Paleo Indians were simply absorbed into later Native American cultures. There is considerable genetic evidence that shows the Paleo Indians intermixed with other populations that migrated to the Americas. Today, we remember the Paleo Indians as the first inhabitants of the Americas. They were brave people who ventured into a new world filled with both promise and peril. They were explorers and adventurers who helped open up the Americas to human habitation. Without the Paleo Indians, the history of the Western Hemisphere would be very different. That brings us to the end of our journey through pre-contact Native American history. I hope you enjoyed learning more about the Paleo Indians, America's earliest known people. If you'd like to learn more about them or other Native American cultures, check out the resources below. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more videos on Native American history. Thanks for watching. See you next time.